How's your day been so far? Good?
Not too bad. Yeah, I've been getting a couple things done. Not enough, but
Well, I don't know if I'm more excited about the fact that NASA has finally declared that there's water on Mars, or that Google is going to be announcing a new demographically sensitive advertising platform similar to Facebook. So I don't know whether or not to be happy about getting to a planet or taking over this one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about ad blocking. That's a big one. Well, Google's got to do something with that, with Apple. Yeah. Except I'm still a little confused on the iOS ad blocking, because I tried it on my wife's thing, and it basically has a little note that says, "Oh, you won't see fewer ads; they just won't be as targeted." So I'm figuring it's like
it's interesting too. It's like, obviously I had that Skift thing that unfortunately HSMI reached out, or they reached out to HSMAI, and Jason was nice enough to think of me and throw the quote in for it. It was interesting to read the other feedbacks from the other people that had been solicited for pushback. Hilton took me as a little odd, because they really said they weren't worried about it because most people interface with them on their mobile app, and therefore it shouldn't be an issue. And I thought that was slightly interesting.
What's the scream?
It was one of those like, okay, sure, but that's not the only way that they find. Oh, never mind, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, remember that iOS thing? I don't know. Might have. I think I don't know if it works on mobile or not. You may need to check that.
You might want to check it. But yeah, I tried playing with the security settings on my iOS, and it really didn't change much of the results. I don't know whether there's a time latency to it or not, but it didn't seem to take anything away. And then I visited a couple of websites that I had analytics on to see if my traffic to or from it had actually had any sort of negative impact.
Yeah,
I saw myself pop in there. So again, I'm not quite certain yet about the finite detail on it, as it is just the concept that you're going to be able to selectively shut things off, but always in mind that Apple will still be able to talk to you and know everything you're doing outside of that anyway. So
right, and I think that's it. I think it's more on the analytics side than it's the walled garden with who gets access to the analytics, right? So
well, I mean, they went off and went security option on us now going 2 years ago, so that there was a way of controlling exactly the metrics anyway. And this just seems to be the next migration of, okay, if you're on Facebook, you're on Facebook's walled garden. If you're on Google, you're on Google's walled garden. And Apple, well, they're going to keep track of what mode, what modality, whether it be mobile or not, that you're reaching out on. So, I think all well with that. A couple things I want to throw out for thought processes anyway today. We were in topic conversations in the office today, and it doesn't seem that we've talked enough about geolocation functionalities, the ability to identify based on just not saying you're in a DMA, designated market area, but also defining it by address selection or type of audience wanting to be spoken to in a particular geographic location. And of course, then there's the whole twist of CRM management. If you have, like with Facebook, custom audiences, how does that translate for the individual hotels? And they're just finishing what now? They're just now rolling out of their budgets. Mm-hmm. Maybe a few of them still have some lingering October things to do with, but they're kind of wrapping up their 16 budgets. So I know that this has been a part of conversation for them, because our client base has been asking us a lot of questions about it as well. It's like, how do I integrate this new stuff, and what should I really be concerned with?
Yeah.
Ironically, I even had people ask about Blab, which I thought was kind of funny. I really wish they would change the platform name, because people look at me like, Blab what?
Yeah.
But once they get seeing it, I think that they begin to understand the concept of it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so I don't know if anyone on my team, I know I have Carrie with us, I have Tucker with us, Bethany's joined with us. There's Tucker. If anybody else wants to grab an extra seat, just let me know. But we'll roll out things between Robert and I first about a little bit of geofencing. Robert, do you have anything that you have worked with, or any insights that you have on how you've optimized geofencing for a hotel?
It's interesting. Certainly there's a lot of discussion around iBeacons, or now Google's Eddystone, that sort of thing. But I've been working with a little startup in New York who's doing some very, very interesting stuff. And actually, they weren't even using beacons. They were just doing it by basically triangulation of Wi-Fi signals. So, so it is possible through some other methods, but and they're actually looking at if they should get into the travel space, because it's just so large, and there's so many. Should they talk to airlines? Should they work with hotels? That sort of thing. How would all this work? But they've done some amazing things of tying it into CRM, lead development in the automotive space, and it's just incredible. I mean, you drive people to a particular website where a lot of it now is create your own car, right? Because I'd like I'd like this color interior and that, and put things together. Well, they start tagging these things, and all of a sudden the person shows up at the lot. Or actually, some of these apps have scheduling appointments and things like that, where you can go and schedule something. Well, what they can do, let's say you're buying a Mercedes, and Lauren, you've been dreaming about this really nice jet black convertible that's written, well, maybe we won't get that one, but I'll get one, maybe a step. We won't go 5 Series, we'll go 3 Series or something like that, or 7 versus 5, whatever your particular thing is. Well, you come in for your test drive, they figure out they've been tracking who you are, what you do, kind of the salesperson who you've been in conversation with, because basically you're basically aligning all of the points of conversation, right? Be it Facebook or web or mobile, all those sorts of things come into kind of one stream. And when you show up, there may be the red 5 Series that you kind of looked at last and made a reservation to go, to go drive. Or maybe you just reserved a 5 Series. Well, it's the red one you were looking at, but right next to it, all ready to go, is that black 7 Series, which is, what a coincidence. And it's apparently working just amazingly well. I mean, the engagement level and the ability to provide this information to the car sellers, who hopefully are using it responsibly, and not freaking people out with it, but they're just going, okay, this is what they're looking at. How do we answer these things? And basically anticipating all these questions and answers before the person even comes up to it. If the person's been clicking around on the financing page a lot, they can have all that set up and be ready for it and be more efficient. It's a really, really powerful thing.
At one point, DeAndre made a great comment saying about how aligning the points of the conversation, because really at that point, we're always under the belief that as we interact with our guests or potential customers, whatever definition you want to have for them, that you're constantly under a sense of renewal of identifying what it is that they're interested in, why they're talking to you. And here what's happening is the data that's being able to be gleaned from, as you say, from location-based or previous touch points with the guests are all being brought together in alignment, so that you don't have to keep reconstituting the newness of the conversation. You can now greet the person with a little bit more intimate knowledge of them and saying, oh, man, Mr. Cole, thank you so much for coming back to the hotel, which is an old Four Seasons trick, to being like, we have you in the room that's off to the north that you liked, and we have the pillows the way you like, and we have reservation at the restaurant because your dinner special is something you like. All these pseudo-knowledgeable things about you, or all that CRM database, is then being able to be used, because things like the iBeacons and so forth are letting them know of your relative location in a much more finite way. What scares me about the beacon stuff is, of course, Apple had their iBeacons, and they've slowly shared their API, and now they've opened it wide open. Mm-hmm. And a lot of companies are running around trying to give free iBeacons out.
Yeah. Facebook.
Yeah, and then now Facebook's trying to give their iBeacons out, or their beacons out, and then Google comes with theirs. And what scares me about it is, at first it was all under the premise of, when you're in this location, we're going to push something to you. We're going to let you know that there's a coupon or a discount or a thing that you see. And most of the usage now, I'm going to quote a stat and not give the source of it, but 80-ish%, let's be round about it, of iBeacon usage right now is not in active interaction, it's in passive interaction. It's meant to garner information, find out who it is that's coming in, and from that, use that to better refine other ways that they're reaching out to the guest, not just directly because they're in proximity and the beacon pinged. So to that, I know that some of the other stuff, and any of the other team that's on that wants to jump in any of the chairs, please let me know. It's always open. The idea of the geofencing, I mean, I've had some examples, Robert, you've heard them, where geofencing an airport with software that's available these days, much cheaper than when I used it. And finding certain terms that were triggers. This airport had a high cancellation or weather-related delays. So we would trigger in, we had an airport hotel around it, one of 6. So all those shuttle buses are running around trying to get whoever needs a room. And what we did was we triggered certain words like delayed or stuck, or we had about 10 of them. And whenever somebody would tweet that and share that, we would trigger in saying, hey, sorry to hear that you're stuck at the airport. Meet our shuttle by gate 5, and we can have you to our hotel in less than 10 minutes, and show this and get 10% off our best available rate.
Yep.
And we literally lined them up to the shuttle. The other shuttles are looking like, how'd this new hotel get all this business?
Right.
And not come walk over to us. So that's one aspect of geofencing. That's a-specific, using certain softwares and so forth. We know that exists around concerts. Anybody's been to a concert realizes that they're getting specifically identified because of the location they're in. Anybody that has played with an app called Banjo, I mean, it's scary how
very scary stuff with Banjo.
Yeah, they're public postings, so you can look anywhere geographically in the world and see what's being posted in the software. So say, wow, this is an Instagram post, this is what have you, which is fun around concerts and stuff, but it's also interesting as a news gathering source. I mean, I'm always impressed with the fact that more and more news sources are looking to and pointing out the social posting prior to the news coverage of it. Right. Even here locally in Dallas, of course, we're in our anniversary of when the Ebola scare came through. And they were very proud of one person having put the first tweet out about the hospital possibly treating somebody with Ebola. And that was the first news reference to the whole Ebola events that started happening after that. And it was social based. I mean, it goes back to the old, to the first one with the aircraft in the Hudson, the plane in the Hudson River. That was the first true show of social's value as a news source compared to news medium getting into it first and stuff. And that proximity value, like I said with Banjo, and there's much more advanced tools, is even getting more refined. Anything that you've played with that has some of that similarities?
No, well, just a comment though, because what happens is first it's immediate. People are there as opposed to deploying people out. I mean, certainly, with the Boston Marathon bombing, social was huge. I mean, there were some reporters basically who were on Twitter using some hashtags who were basically figuring out what's going on. We're talking fast breaking news. CNN, Fox, all those guys were 30 minutes behind. It was unbelievable. Now, these guys were responsible journalists, though, because they weren't necessarily just out tweeting, hey, I think I saw the guy. It was always, they'd kind of check their sources and that sort of thing and then tweet, but really, really quick turnaround. The downside of that is you don't have that kind of editorial oversight, right? Where somebody's going, whoa, hang on. That's, probably not a UFO. I don't think that's an alien attacking wherever. That's just something that's unidentified to you, sort of thing. So, it's not a dangerous situation. Don't go don't go yell fire in the theater. That's just an orange piece of paper or something. So,
but good points on the sidebar too. Just for everyone that may have been joining just recently, we're talking about the ability of geofencing and geolocating advertisements and communication with guests or customers, whatever way you translate your business type. And we started going into, Robert and I did start talking about social and how it's in fact impacting coming in. Hey, there's Carrie. And how using things like Banjo and any geo-located area for social tracking has really been able to define some ways of insight. And then, of course, I think Mr. DeAndre and Lauren Hug went over and both pointed out examples in the chat line about things from Whitney Houston being tweeted out 2 hours before to aspects of news coming out ahead of when the newscasters actually cover it as real media. So, Carrie, I'm sorry, you joined. Over right ahead. Hi.
No, I was actually thinking about more along the lines of geofencing and how marketers are using that. I know we kind of got on the news slant a little bit, but we've been experimenting with Local Measure, as Lauren knows, and it allows you to geofence a particular location, and then within that location, you can pull all of the conversations that are happening around your brand, but they don't have to tag you. They don't even have to mention you. It's more or less just everyone's social activity within your location and being able to pull that through. And something that I saw that was really neat with that was the example was a shopping center, and they had geofenced the shopping center's location. And what the shopping center was doing was using the content that people were posting and repurposing that, so they're not having to always generate their own content. It also makes it easy to ask for approval to do that, so that way you don't feel like you're stepping on any toes. But then the other side of that too was that they could surprise and delight, as Marriott likes to say. They could surprise and delight their customers by giving them an insight on sales, or offering them that bag that they tweeted about that they just absolutely loved, and sharing it with them that, hey, by the way, it's now on sale. Or in one instance, they actually purchased purchased it for that person. And they saw a huge spike in their engagement that day, as well as like they had an increase of 200 followers, because why do people follow brands? 88% of the time, it's so that they get something in return. They expect to be rewarded. So I think that's really the benefit of geo-targeting specific areas, is really the ability to reward your fans in a way that is organic to them.
And I think it's a real challenge for hotels, though, because you have such a mix of personas kind of blending in, right? You've got people who are staying in the rooms, who are, not necessarily doing anything in the hotel. They're just using it to sleep there. Other ones who may be meeting in the hotel, half of which may be upstairs in the rooms, half of which may be from the local community. You don't really know. Other people who are coming in just to eat, that sort of thing, or to meet somebody in the lobby, right? So fencing all those off, it's that context issue is just absolutely huge. And again, if you can start tying into other sources and know, oh, well, I know they're from the local area and they're here, then you can start doing some interesting things. So it's a little bit easier, I think, for shopping centers and things like that. You go, well, they're probably shopping. They're in the shopping. Yeah.
Well, and what was neat about Local Measure was the ability to, you could see their level of influence. So you could see, okay, they've actually tweeted at you before, they've tagged you this many times, or you could see your history of engagement with that person. So it made that you kind of knew, okay, this person's an influencer, this one cares about my brand, versus kind of someone who, doesn't really care, and maybe it's just like a random blip on the map. But even then, those are still opportunities to make them a brand ambassador for you if they weren't before.
Just for those inside the chat box too, some of the conversation going back to, I think Bethany pointed out, and DeAndre is saying the same thing, is that, you have your negative side to this too, which is a lot of unsubstantiated comments and conversations go out onto the social platforms like Twitter, like, that people have passed or died or whatever have you, and it was never confirmed, but it's just, gossipy garbage that goes out there. But it's been around in some form or another, as they're pointing out in the chat, for a while. Just Twitter seems to exacerbate that a lot, because if it turns viral enough and fast enough, then it gets spread enough. But again, to the location aspect of all this, there are platforms right now like Facebook and Twitter that the more refined you are by location, the better you're able to define the types of audiences that you can reach that aren't necessarily based on your CRM data, where you have demographic profiles, but based, like the Perry, you probably said it's better, just talking about the isolation of taking an address, and Facebook gives you there's three choices of an audience: the local, the visitor, and the traveler, and they're based on a range difference as to what you put as location. You want to talk to that a little bit about being able to better identify advertising opportunities because of that?
Mm-hmm. Well, and even now, local awareness campaigns, being able to drop a pin on your business location and advertise within a certain proximity, I think that it's very underutilized still. The ability to, if you say are a restaurant or a bar and you're located half a mile, not even, maybe from a football stadium, why would you not run a local awareness ad during that time to get people to come to your happy hour? There's very simple fixes, and with say $50 maybe you spend, and you get 20 people possibly to come into your location. That it paid for itself 3 times over.
Even if you were to be smart enough to look forward ahead and say that you drive them to a unique offer opportunity for them, and then custom audience that again later through for Facebook Pixel, so that you can go back and readdress them as somebody that in a particular event and was personally interested in what you're doing. I think Lauren asked a question, Carrie, when you were referring to the shopping center example. She's asking about who owned the data.
I was actually just responding to that.
Oh.
So, yeah. So the way, for instance, Local Measure works is that it can only access content that is from a public profile. So it's not going to pull in that much from Facebook unless your profile is public, which mainly is not the case. But a lot of Twitter accounts as well as Instagram is where it can pull in that. And once you if you have a public profile and you put that information out there, it's not really owned by anyone. They can go the extra step and say if they are, and this is in any case, if you're going to manipulate that data, then, or that image that that person's posted, then you need to ask permission for that. But if you're just kind of reposting as is, you don't need permission to do that.
I think she followed up with about similar to being Tagboard or Storify.
I haven't used either of those. I've heard of Tagboard.
It's not.
I haven't used it for Storify.
It's not for Storify. It's similar in concept, not similar in process. I think probably one of the best things. Yeah. Storify, yeah, DeAndre agrees with me. Storify is interesting and fun to use. It's a different methodology. I think from the Facebook perspective, and even down to Twitter, which even allows you to get to a smaller focus to it, the idea is like we think here, it's like if you're for hospitality's sake, you're a restaurant, and you know of a known event or an activity that's going on in your area, to fence that, and then try to engage with them in that fence for things so that you can create your own relationship for them and have them come to you. It just seems to me such common sense. It's not hoping that they see you. It's not posting and being relevant in content to see you. It's actually identifying the high opportunity to improve the conversion of people most likely to take advantage. I mean, just because somebody from good content saw whatever it is that you may have posted and been referring to, they could be in a totally isolated or non-related way. They're not going to take advantage of anything that they have to offer. Here, you're really identifying through a geography a value proposition by reaching out to them. So it is an excellent strategy for that.
Yeah.
Robert, have you done anything similar to that, or have you played with any of that?
A variety of, actually, some of the folks that I know and have worked with in the sports marketing area for basketball teams, baseball teams, football team. They've been doing a lot of different, how do you engage with these fans? How do you really make things go? But again, they're the demand generator right there. So I shouldn't say easier. I mean, it's a big task. But I think the point about the food and beverage operations all surrounding these events, whatever it may be, concerts, events, sports activities, even large conventions in town, the ability to target these things, engage with folks and say, hey, we have something for you, is huge. And it's not very expensive. You can reach a lot of people, and it's whatever. I mean, currently they have, baseball teams will have someone buying a lot of advertising saying, yes, every time the team scores over 5 runs, you get a free hamburger or something like that. But you can go target those things, really yourself without having to go tie in the team necessarily and things like that, just by geofencing these folks. So, hey, help celebrate the win. Come over to the bar and, or whatever. We have live music, or it's people are doing it with following live bands. It's great.
Like Twitter's targeting is much better, in my opinion, than Facebook's targeting in certain ways. We've run campaigns before where, we weren't necessarily, it was actually with a big shopping center, and we were targeting we wanted to reach a specific audience, but we targeted based off of other things that were happening at the center that particular audience would be interested in. So like a movie that was coming out during that time, or a restaurant that was launching, those type of things. So, there's ways to target your audience's interests without targeting at them, if that makes sense. And I think that's where sometimes marketers get it wrong, is they're wanting that person, but they're not around the things that person's interested in. So.
John made a very good point that from certain people's perspective, having these more targeted, relevant content items is showing that there's a value proposition that the business is looking to serve up, that they're being tailored and specific to an audience that they would want to go over and do business with, not just generic shotgun blasts of content out there. And then Tucker also pointed out the fact that, it is a very viable method to use it with your competitive set. That why not? All's fair in love, war, and business. And if you know who your direct competitors are, you can best isolate out some of these geofence strategies and target people that may be loyal to your competitor because they enjoy your competitor's stuff. Hence, they're your competitor. They might enjoy your product as well, and find a way of getting them open. So yes, they both provide value. Now, Carrie, platform-wise, local measures, one that I know that you just spoke about. We've implied about Geofeedia. That's the platform I use for the fencing as well. We know that Facebook does geofencing or radiant targeting as well. We know Google does. Is there any other service platforms that we can talk about that do that similar type of identifying and isolation?
There's Stackla. Stackla does it. They are I think they're based out of Southeast Asia. They might be out of Singapore or Australia. but they do similar to what Local Measure does. Trying to think, has anyone done feed targeting? Have you seen that doing feed targeting? It's not geo-targeting, it's feed targeting. It's now, I've noticed, like we're using Falcon Social right now, and what I've seen is that, and I'm going to pull this up so I can look at it real quick. It has an option to do what it calls feed targeting. So I assume that it can take, I'm going to pull this up and give it a look.
Pulling keywords out of a feed or something like that for.
I'm wondering if that's what it is. Hang on one second. I think it is doing that. I think it is pulling. Here we go. Feed targeting. News feed targeting must be enabled on a Facebook page. More. Okay. So feed targeting is where you can take a specific post and say, I want this post only to be geared at men that are single, that are interested, say maybe in other men, and they are the ages of like 21 to like 35. So there's different platforms now that allow you to target you taking your Facebook audience all the way down to niche audiences within your audience that you currently have. And I think that is going to make a really big difference in how engaging your content is and who you're targeting to reach, because any content marketer knows that you can't make you can make some content for everyone, right? And reach the general audience that you have, but there are specific posts that you have very targeted audience in mind for. Maybe it's LGBT or it's newly engaged. Now with feed targeting, you can take that specific post without any dollars and just have it only reach that audience that you want it to reach. So it's kind of neat stuff.
That's very cool. I mean, you follow hashtags. Much more topic with what you're doing. That's pretty cool. Robert, anything you messed with that we haven't touched on already that does some of this focusing?
No, I think you've covered the major ones. The key is the context. I mean, that if you can really find what these people, that even particularly for hotels, not necessarily that they're highly interested in your hotel, but they're interested in various things. So, new Star Wars movies coming out. Well, that's something. Or, certainly, I think there were a lot of people who were very disappointed in the results of the Pope. Of the business uplift from the Pope being in Washington, New York, and Philly, from what I saw. The hotels didn't get a big boost. Well, I don't know if they were really targeting things that well. That probably could have been a very interesting thing to go dig into and see what we can do
I guess you were
through social channels as opposed to just. I think they were just thinking, well, the city's going to be full. We're going to jack up the rates and we're going to make a killing, and that didn't really happen. So.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to an old thing that we often have this conversation with clients where when their business is very good, they feel that they have the ability to farm back on the advertising. And really, it's the type of what you're doing for advertising. Instead of trying to solicit to sell something, you change it into a branding perspective of how to make sure that you get front of mind for them. And even though you have a hotel's case in group, a restaurant has no reservations, you're dining. The fact that you're making them aware that there will be a chance to reach out to them in the future, because there are times when business goes down that those same people that wanted to come into your hotel or restaurant couldn't, might be the same people that you could solicit to come back at a time that you can really use the business because you do have the opportunity. So advertising, period, allows you a branding and an ability to reach out with all this tracking that we're talking about, so that in the future, they might be in your drive market. So now you can isolate them and say, hey, 150 miles away, I want this advertisement placed for these people so that they now will come back to my hotel at a time that I can really use the business. And you wouldn't have had that information had you just stopped advertising and stopped engaging with them and doing demand. So it goes back to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's something like the Pope, it's, hey, you're along the parade route or whatever. That's fine. And you can start saying this, and all of a sudden, hey, you can start renting your rooms on the that side of the hotel more, and you start targeting those things. That's big.
Yep. I hate to cut this short while we're having people joining in on us. I really appreciate the attendance. We're doing this every week. This topic of this week was about talking about geofencing and the functions that can be done for geofencing for hospitality. We talked a little bit about tools and platforms that are being used, and ways that it has been used. Thank you, Carrie, very much for the insights on that, and Robert as well. And that We try to keep each week relevant to what's maybe of interest that's happening that week. I know that Google has some announcements going on this week on some of their wild advertising enhancements. If anybody has a topic of interest that they would like to be covered on this, we're more than welcome to join us or bring it up as a post on Twitter before we open it up, and we'll throw it into the topic list. We hope you join us next week. We're going to try to get back to a midweek schedule. We're trying to do this on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock or 1:30 Central, somewhere there around. We think that seems to be the best time for all of that. So again, thank you, Carrie, for jumping in.
You're welcome.
And we'll see everybody.
And merci to our French people.
I know, yes, and our French people that we get to say goodbye to. Sorry.
Merci.
Next week.
Au revoir.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.